The Talk Station presents Faith Matters, a look at contemporary stories and issues from a faith perspective. While this is a pre-recorded show, we are interested in your ideas, comments, and questions, and we urge you to email them to faithmatters@thetalkstation.com.
Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life.
And now on the Talk Station, Faith Matters.
And welcome to another edition here of Faith Matters on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. And I'm Ben Ball, along with Reverend Robert Cornegy from Chapel by the Sea in Emerald Isle. Also, Reverend Carl Zarowski from St. Peter's United Methodist Church, and retired Anglican Bishop Doc Loomis with us as well. Good morning, gentlemen. Hello, everyone.
Good morning. Howdy, Ben.
Let's get started today as we talk about Donald Trump's return to the U.S. after a trip abroad. He just actually back to work after his first major international trip that included a stopover with a NATO alliance that probably was not his favorite part of the trip. But the first part of it, though, we want to actually draw from an article out of NPR that says Trump avoids major slips on international religious tour. By heading straight to the homelands of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity on his first presidential trip, Donald Trump took a major risk. The possibility of offending his host somewhere along the way with an ill-conceived tweet or offhand remark loomed large. Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Vatican are places where appearances matter and words must be chosen carefully. This was a kabuki dance through a minefield, said Chris Seipel, who has written extensively on religion and foreign policy. Any president would have difficulty handling, giving all the different perspectives and all the ways it could go wrong. Then a couple of paragraphs later, it says, kind of meekly, Trump managed for the most part to avoid controversy as he moved from one religion's capital to another. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. First of all, the approach to the article, Robert, is like it's like betting who's going to wreck first in a NASCAR race.
That's why it was, a lot of it was televised, was because everybody wanted to see the wreck.
Yeah,
so that's why why NASCAR is so popular. Everybody's hoping their guy doesn't get in it, but there is one. Let's have a wreck. Well, yeah, he didn't wreck, but I can tell you, I've seen him dance, and it's no kabuki.
Yes.
He dances about as good as Bush did.
Yes.
I think that's a rule for Republicans. You just
can't dance.
Can't dance. Conservatives cannot dance. No. Can't jump either. And so he really showed that one with the little sword dance he was doing over there. That was
we're not
hilarious.
Good at that one.
Yeah, I mean, we have a way. Americans. We used to have this term years ago, the ugly Americans, going to Europe or wherever, and boy, I tell you, we're living up to it. But yeah, it's amazing. The media love to hate Bush. I mean, they just love to hate that man. And
hate Trump, you mean?
I mean Trump. Sorry, excuse me.
Well,
they did with Bush too. Yeah. So, but
this takes on a new.
This
level.
is new dimensions of hating.
Well, we'll get back to that in a second. On this trip, Doc, when you look at, especially when he goes from Saudi Arabia to the first direct flight ever from Saudi Arabia to Jerusalem, and then goes on to Rome and meets with Pope Francis. Almost 37 years after Ronald Reagan met with John Paul II. This is a momentous trip for his first trip abroad as president. I mean, you can't take that away from him. This was historic.
Well, NPR is certainly trying.
They're trying
to take it away from him, but it's. I'm not going to say it's miraculous, but it's pretty heavy duty. I mean, imagine sitting around the office going, "Gosh, what am I going to do, as my first 100 days wraps up? I think I'll go visit the three major homes of the three major religions and see if there's any possibility to develop relationships, stabilization, and maybe, peace." And as you guys have already noted, to have an entire national media looking at you and saying, well, it's nice that Dorothy Hamill didn't fall down. No, she won the gold medal. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this trip was a gold medal performance. If there were people that had problems with Donald Trump, this should do an awful lot to shut him up. It didn't, but it should. This is a president who made an important decision to make an important trip. He did it with a great deal of acumen, and he did dance through a minefield. You know, this guy Seipel that you were talking about before, I think it's Chris Seipel.
Yes.
This is probably the preeminent person on secular religion, military, NGOs. This guy is the head of so many organizations and has such an incredible record. And his quotes, while he's quoted in here, they're kind of buried. Then you notice the gal, what was her name? The Lee gal that was also quoted in this, who was a professor at Manhattan College in New York, who teaches a course on sexuality and religion and the misogyny and ecclesiastical browbeating of women by the church. She's the one who's actually quoted as saying he really goofed this up. So here's what we have. We have a wonderful story, an opportunity for the media to say all the things that they didn't like about Trump in the campaign and say, boy, he almost did it. He was going to do it. It was going to be horrible. It was going to be, and then they go, well, but actually he didn't. It actually kind of went okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm just tired of it all. I think we're all tired of the media reporting like this. Yeah. Yes? Yeah. Just me?
Yeah. No.
It's pretty much.
It is. But Carl, is this coming across as a president who might actually, maybe the art of the deal might be to broker peace?
I would like to think so. I mean, certainly one of the skills that he brings to the office is his ability to broker a deal. All right. And you have three major religions that don't always get along well with one another. And in that part of the world, that's very evident. We just heard last week about a busload of Coptic Christians being killed for their faith. I read somewhere else this week that that Islam is expected to be the largest religion in the world by the end of the century. Okay,
Pew Research.
Pew Research. We need to learn to get along, and if there's somebody that is willing to go and talk to these different factions and try to maybe get them at a table together, more power to him.
This comes though after Pope Francis goes and visits with imams, right? And there's a statement there about these particular imams in Egypt trying to broker or at least put forth their understanding that what ISIS represents is not them. So this is happening on a world stage. Trump's visit, in other words, is not in isolation. It's not taking place in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and particularly the division in Islam right now between the Sunni and the Shia.
Certainly on evidence with the
and he went specifically, and I tell you, he did not hold back. Now this guy is determined to call out the bad characters in the world right now, and he's not holding back. He's doing it, and a lot of people in our politically correct atmosphere cannot handle this. NPR, obviously, one of them.
There's no alliance right now, really. I mean, that against ISIL, there just isn't. I mean, the United States and Britain kind of agree, and Brussels is pretty shook up, and France has been hit a couple of times, and it's tough, but it appears to me that what Donald Trump's doing is he's actually trying to create an alliance among major bodies, not just religions, but countries and NATO and the European Union. I mean, I think if anybody can make it happen on a world stage, he probably can. Do you guys feel like that? Like that's what he's doing right now?
Well, I do. I think that is his acumen. Is to make that kind of a deal. Now, but here, what do we see? What do we see? You turn on your TV. Is not that you see what was it called, a slow motion coup d'etat is underway with the media piling up against it, the Democrats piling up against. And
have you noticed that the media has become the news?
Yeah,
I mean, when you've got a media that's putting itself in the
They are the story.
in the story. I mean, it is awful what's going on.
Well, let me share this. That you mentioned the woman who was the professor from Manhattan College. Okay, her quote is, that what's coming across to me is that Trump approached the trip as a business deal or a series of business deals, which tends to be more his worldview, and that's what makes him so different from Francis. What is Francis? Francis is a religious leader. What is Trump? Trump is the president of the United States. We don't ask him to be a religious leader,
Yes.
so why should it be a surprise that he is different from a religious
But
leader?
Chris Seipel's quote bears repeating, which is, they actually have more in common than they have, I'm quoting him poorly, they have a lot in common. They both know how to run a brand. They both know how to get things
They're
done.
both populist.
And they're both good
Well,
yes,
yeah, and they both have. I would say that they both have. We're agreeing that they have the same end in mind. Mm-hmm. It's just that their means of getting there may be different. I think
Right.
that's what you were
Right,
saying.
that's what I'm
And so
saying.
Trump's going to approach it in an entirely different way. The Pope is going to use. He's going to compromise on some things, and Trump not so much.
Well, Donald Trump said, "Peace. We can use that." That's like a bargaining chip, So that sort of is the essence of the difference here.
Yeah.
So we'll have more to come in a moment on Faith Matters on the Talk Station. Welcome back to Faith Matters here on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. And I'm Ben Ball, along with Bishop Doc Loomis and also Reverend Carl Zarowski. I was almost going to get my people mixed up here. I almost made you bishop there, Carl. Also, Reverend Robert Cornegy with us here today on Faith Matters. Let's talk about a statement and an article that comes out in an interesting website. It's called churchmilitant.com by Rodney Pelletier. The headline is U.S. Bishops Condemn Trump for Spending on Border Enforcement. But the subtitle is also going to get your attention there, too. The bishops have raked in billions in federal dollars for its immigration office. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is addressing President Trump's 2018 budget proposal, criticizing increased military spending and stronger enforcement of border security and immigration. A letter from the USCCB is signed by 6 bishops, including Cardinal Timothy Dolan of the Archdiocese of New York, calls the budget a moral document with profound implications for the common good of our nation and world. It is addressed to the members of the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, all of whom will discuss and vote on President Trump's budget proposal. The U.S. bishops, however, are condemning $639 million in discretionary spending to the Department of Defense, while applying steep cuts to the U.S. State Department, calling the move a threat to the security of our nation and the world. They continue, the USCCB has repeatedly called for robust diplomatic efforts to end long-standing conflicts in a range of countries, including Syria and Iraq. It's hard to reconcile the need for diplomacy and political solutions with significant cuts to the State Department budget. Budget narrative notes, however, the defense spending is vital to rebuilding and modernizing and preparing for our armed forces. Okay, now it goes on to talk about another part. Before we get to that, this is a long preface to what this writer's argument it really is here, is that the bishops who've raked in billions of dollars of taxpayer money during the Obama administration over immigration are calling spending increases to enforce standing immigration laws profoundly troubling. Robert, this comes, we've talked about this subject actually before, that there was an Obama administration initiative that would allow immigrants to come to this country but only through certain recognized channels.
That's right.
That would receive federal funding for helping them come here.
Right.
And those recognized channels include the Catholic Church.
Caritas, yeah, that's one of the big ones, and as well as World Relief, and I mean there are a number of Methodist Church has a relief program, a bunch of them, and so it's become I hate to use this term, but it has become a bit of a cash cow in those areas of immigration relief, if you will, for them, because there's huge amount of money on the table out there. I mean, do you know what the nonprofit world? It's a multi-zillion dollar
Zillion. Yes.
whatever that is. That was an old term we used to use. We used to throw around. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of money on the table, and so we with this idea of holding it back, a lot of those ministries and churches and organizations, nonprofits that are involved in that, whether they're faith-based or secular, are feeling the pinch right now. So yeah, they're going to start. The lobbying efforts are going to be picking up again on trying to get that going. In fact, they just released on Thursday, I think it was. Trump had put in I guess he did one
executive order.
Orders to reduce the number to about 500 a month or something like that, and they just announced that's been taken off. And the State Department did this without the White House knowing what was going on. So we'll probably see some pushback on that. So there's an effort to try to get that flow going again back to the United States.
Carl, this is a complicated thing. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. And is this writer fairly or unfairly singling out some of those moving parts? Is this, or is he on the right track about criticizing the U.S. bishops here?
That's a tough question for me to answer. I look at that, I see the bishops, they've been doing a lot of really good work. If they are helping the people who are the immigrants, we're called as followers of Christ to help those who need help. And if they've been doing that, that's a wonderful thing. If they're concerned that the new budget may make it harder to help them, I understand that concern as well. However, if the new budget, if part of that is to enforce the immigration laws that are already on the books, then why is that a concern? So you're right. There's a lot of moving parts, and this is very murky right here.
Yeah, it is.
And Doc, as we were saying even in the last segment, this doesn't take place in a vacuum. You look at the other moves about sanctuary cities, other restrictions on funding that goes. And this article mentions about an executive order to stopping any U.S. taxpayer money from going to NGOs in poor countries that promote abortion. So there's, again, this moving parts. It's tough for lay people to understand this, isn't it? Or do you understand it completely?
I don't understand it either. What I understand is the importance of the role of the bishops, and the emphasis to which all of us are called that are bishops. I mean, we are called to make known the faith, to preach the resurrection of Christ, to talk about the transformation of hearts and minds through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And while all of this seems very important, my concern with the Council of Bishops over the years has always been the lack of commitment to 1 and 2. It's a numbers game in religion, and 1 and 2 is proclaim the gospel, baptize, make disciples. And social justice is important, and politics is important, and immigration is important, and abortion is important. Everything is important. But my concern has been for a long time when I see what the College of Bishops is doing. The Council of Bishops is. We just seem to be ignoring the real work that we're given to do. And I just have a hard time with that. I have a difficult time, not with what they've said, not with the complications of it, not with the fact that the church gets involved in politics or social justice or anything at some level. But for God's sake, this is about the gospel. And I just don't feel the oomph in the gospel message anymore. It feels like everybody's playing the low numbers right now, and we're ignoring number 1 and 2.
Right. We go back to that, what we talked about earlier with Pew Research, where by the end of the century, Islam is going to be the largest denomination in the world. It's going to surpass Christianity. Well, what does that say about us in the church? And I'm not just talking about the leaders of the church. I'm talking about all the laity as well. What are we called to do? Go and make disciples of Jesus Christ. apparently we're not doing enough of that. And like Doc said, we need to get back to the emphasis on 1 and 2. And if we are making more disciples and those people are living their lives like Christ, these people who are immigrants, these people who are poor, these people who are hungry, they are going to be helped.
You know, Carl, what you bring up, though, is also we see in the Methodist Church there's been a critique of bishops and councils of bishops and various groups in the Methodist Church about not being teachers, about not being not coming forth and helping to promote, as you said, the 1 and 2, the gospel message and the mission to make disciples. You know, and instead embracing social justice issues. To the detriment of teaching.
Correct.
You know, so not necessarily ignoring them completely, but that emphasis is on that particular hand of the gospel is allowing the other hand to kind of trail behind the back.
Right,
So-
and that other end of the gospel, the social justice, that is so critical. But our number one job is to go out and make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. As people become his disciples and as their lives are changed, the world will be transformed.
Robert, you've been involved in social
Well, that's
justice.
right. You know, I mean, you know, we talk about the two hands of the gospel, but it's the content is the gospel in the context of helping people. We can't do one. We do it all the time, one without the other, but it really needs to be both. And so that, I think, is really where that balance is. So if they want to, you know, critique about how the budget's being developed, that's part of the negotiation process. But unfortunately, our government, you know, we've kind of seen this shift that the only people that can fix this is government.
Right.
And so we have to strengthen those ties to the government handout. And I mean, it's a partnership. There needs to be both in it. Government can be involved, but it has to be, you know, unfortunately, when government gets involved, strings get applied.
Well, that's always been one of the concerns about faith-based initiatives that are government funded.
That's right. It's
You know,
always got strings.
Where are the strings?
It's a political, you know, sort of balancing act. And so, yeah, we're going to struggle with that. But, you know, I'm all for helping those that legitimately need help. How we work through that process is another matter.
I you know, I had this question actually. It came up in a Bible study. It was someone who was asking, how does the church justify encouraging people here illegally to seek sanctuary in their church? You know, and that's what we're seeing in some of the cities are trying to be sanctuary cities, but we've also seen some churches that would say that too. How do they? And I said, well, wait a minute. Now we have to remember sanctuary. So where do we have that partnership and where do we not? And so that's become a great debate that still is going to exist as long as there's money out there to follow.
Caesar and God.
Yeah, there you go. More to come in a moment here on Faith Matters on the Talk Station FM 107 and AM 1240. Welcome back to Faith Matters here on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. Carl had to head off to another appointment, but the Reverend Robert Cornegy and Bishop Doc Loomis are with us here today. I heard that.
He went to a luncheon with
Yes.
the women.
Yes.
Yes, he's a good pastor.
And we weren't invited.
No.
We'd be there too. Let's talk about this next article here. This comes to us from the Washington Post. And it's about a Christian school. It says Christian school Teen banned from graduation not because she is pregnant, but because she was immoral, is said in quotes in the headline. A small Christian school in Weston, Maryland, is not backing down from its decision to ban a pregnant senior from walking at graduation next week, despite a public outcry and growing pressure from national anti-abortion groups to reconsider. Heritage Academy in Hagerstown says that senior Maddie Runkles broke the school rules by engaging in intimate sexual activity. In a letter to parents Tuesday evening, school principal David R. Hobbs said that Runkles is being disciplined not because she is pregnant, but because she was immoral. The best way to love her right now is to hold her accountable for her morality that began this situation. Runkles, 18, is a 4.0 student who has attended school since 2009. She was found out she was pregnant in January and informed the school, where her father was then a board member. In February, initially the school told Runkles that she would be suspended and removed from her role as student council president and would have to finish the rest of the school year at home. After the family appealed, Heritage said it would allow Runkles to finish the school year with her 14 classmates, but should not be able to walk with the other seniors to receive her diploma at graduation. Okay, lots of issues going on here. I mean, obviously this is a school that has a particular code that it expects its students to follow. So what is wrong, what is right, or what would you do here? Let me start with you, Doc, on that one.
Well, thank you, Ben.
I'm sure you're thanking me.
We have nothing to do with this school whatsoever, but that won't stop us from, imposing our particular sets of beliefs on it. The question, obviously, that's posed by the article, and one that, it's worth sharing with our listeners, is this really the only kid that broke the code this year? Is this the only immoral activity that happened? Is this the only cheating? Is this the only lying, stealing, or
Among
whatever
those
that
14
happened
graduates?
among those 14 or 48 or however many students there are? I find it really hard to believe that one girl had intimate sex and that was the only place where the line was crossed among those 14 students. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were like the disciples. They were all just wonderful, and there was just that one bad apple, poor Maddie Runkles. But I doubt
I'm not
it.
sure the 12 disciples could live up to
Well, I don't think they'd make it through 4 years of the school. No, pretty sure of that. But that becomes the hypocritical challenge for me. Is it because it says she's not being able to walk, not because she's pregnant, but because she's been immoral? And I guess what I would say is baloney. I'm sure there have been other immoral acts committed, but they're not obvious immoral acts that you wear around your waist and make you look big when you walk across the stage in front of the parents, grandparents, and donors. That's what I'm thinking right now.
Okay.
And so the fact of the matter is she's being prohibited from walking precisely because she's pregnant.
because it's obvious.
Because it's
An obvious moral
yes.
failing.
Even though she did the very best thing possible, didn't she? Given the case, she decided not to walk over to the local abortion clinic and have an abortion.
Robert, what do you say about this?
No, this is tough, and this is where a lot of schools, most Christian schools, have these codes. I know, when I went to seminary, then we had codes. There were certain expectations that we had to comply with, and you had to sign documents, that you were intending to comply with this and all of that. So when and it is true that if she had intimacy with, for remembering this is a Sunday morning show, with someone and not gotten pregnant, would there be,
right?
So look, there are always those that get away with it, get away with stuff, whether breaking the code. That becomes part of the deal. Not that I wouldn't think that she intentionally acted that way. Because of the code, but now it's happened. What do you do? Father's on the board of the school. I mean, this is obviously a family that's involved in the life of the school, and a decision was made by a fairly new principal, from what I understand. He's only been there a year, although he's been in the business for a long time. And but now the original decision was appealed, and now they've made a concession. and they've taken away, I don't know if they still took away her being the president of the student body or not, but that was part of the original deal. But she's just not going to be able to walk to get her diploma on the stage as punishment, I guess, for this. We were talking earlier. I really agree that I think there are other ways to do this.
Yeah.
I like the idea of her having to go and work in a pregnancy center somewhere, crisis pregnancy center where you're helping young women understand the challenges of these impulses and how to handle them, the consequences.
She confessed her moral failing.
Right.
I mean, she confessed to the school that this had happened.
Right.
The Jeannie Mancini, president of the March for Life, in this article says that while she respects the school's code of conduct, she worries about what the next pregnant student would do. And Doc, that goes to your point that she did.
Right.
Yeah, if there's that much pressure, if a student is confronted with the fact that they're not going to graduate with their class or walk or be a part of it or however you want to, but doesn't that just kind of pile on to the idea that, well, gosh, I guess I'll go down to the local Planned Parenthood and fix this right now because I sure would like to graduate with my class.
Yeah. Well, realistically, I don't think that's that would have been an option with this family, theoretically. I mean, you would think that would be the compounding the problem. Obviously,
right. Well, the family probably didn't expect this either,
right?
So, but the article goes on at the end. It says Runkle says her situation has drawn so much attention that some friends and classmates who once supported her now think she's just seeking publicity. The backlash has been severe, especially on social media, where she says strangers, acquaintances, and parents of other students have attacked her on social media.
Yeah.
It's really gotten out of control. Moms of students have tagged me and said nasty things about me. I've had students start group messages to start nasty rumors. Is that not also affected by that code, I would think? That code of conduct within the school says that the blowback led Runkle's parents to pull Maddie and her 9th grade brother out of the school for the remainder of the year. Her father, Scott, had resigned from the school board, and her brother will transfer to another Christian school this fall. I think it's tough. It's tough. How do you also, where do you find the teachable moment? Where do you find the Christian teaching in these things that happen?
It is.
Where's the forgiveness and where's grace?
To me, that's one of the challenges. Look, if you think by becoming a Christian you're never going to mess up again, you got another thing coming. Mm-hmm. The good news isn't that we don't mess up. The good news is when we do mess up, we know how to be reconciled.
Yeah, you got to be careful. When you establish a school code that has less grace, that it's actually harder than God's code,
right?
You may have overstepped yourself as a school, and you may want to reconsider your code, or at least how you respond to violations of the code.
Yeah, we had a pastor basically on one of the ships that I served on with Mercy Ships, and he described himself as a recovering Pharisee. Mm-hmm. And that our first indication, our first instinct is to the law,
right?
And look, it's real. Codes are good to have, and we had all kinds of rules. When you're on a ship,
right,
you comply with the rules, but there is grace. And so how do you work through that? I think the process is to demonstrate to the other students that she recognized her failing and that she took steps of repentance, which is, however that does go to the auditorium, have a speech, whatever it is.
I would even go along with removing her as student body president, actually.
Right.
Is this the example? Is this the person you want to hold up as your example?
Yeah.
In some ways, you do want to talk about her not deciding to abort the baby. That's a huge thing. But obviously, there was a failing in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is typical what happens often in these things is that the whole purpose of discipline is to church discipline, or in this case school discipline, is towards reconciliation
and restoration. Yeah.
That's right. And it doesn't appear that there was a well thought out process for that. So
on the other hand, now we have something else that's going on. This is a North Carolina story. about graduation ceremonies taking place on Sunday, as a group of local pastors say Wake County families shouldn't be forced to choose between their faith and attending a Sunday morning high school graduation ceremony. What in the world who's doing that? I mean, apparently in Wake County there are some on Sunday morning. A lot of schools now, I've noticed it in Carteret County and Onslow County. I think Onslow County has one exception among their high schools, but they all have their graduation at the same time.
Right.
And they don't try to make it so that people have to run from one to another. They're going to have to choose if they have kids in other schools, or administrators have to choose. But it seems that there are some cities, certainly in some governments and some entities, Sunday's just another day.
Right.
And
otherwise, you're sitting at home reading the newspaper.
Yeah.
Drinking coffee.
All right. So,
Yeah, isn't this ridiculous? I tell you. I mean, they asked it to be moved back not before 1 o'clock. I mean, come on. That's a pretty good, decent request. If you're going to do it on Sunday, all right, do it on Sunday. Just
Sunday
do it
night.
after 1 o'clock.
Yeah. There you go. We'll have more to come in a moment here on Faith Matters on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. Welcome back to Faith Matters here on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. And I'm Ben Ball, along with Bishop Doc Loomis and Reverend Robert Cornegy. And we talk about the final article today from The Stream and one of our favorite writers, Michael Brown. And he writes about how Ben & Jerry's proves same-sex marriage is not marriage. Just clickbait right on the title. You had to click on it and find out what it was about. It certainly wasn't their intent, Michael writes, but Ben & Jerry's, the famous specialty ice cream company, has given us further evidence that same-sex marriage is not marriage. How so? The company, which has long been known for its left-wing activism, went one step further this week as a headline in the Daily Mail announced Ben & Jerry's banned customers from ordering 2 scoops of the same ice cream until Australia legalizes gay marriage. Trying to make that connection, right?
This is, if some people didn't have
convoluted.
double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. And that's Ben & Jerry's.
That's right. If you want 2 scoops of New York Super Fudge chocolate on your ice cream cone, you can't have it. You'll have to settle for just 1 scoop and mix it with another flavor. This has Ben & Jerry's way of sending a message: we believe love comes in all flavors. But what Michael Brown says is what they're showing, logically is exactly the opposite.
Right.
That 2 same things are not the same as 2 different things.
Yeah.
And so that men and women constitute marriage, and they're the 2 different scoops on the ice cream cone that ought to be there. So I don't know. I thought it was just fun the way.
I'm so glad we got to this article. I was concerned that something of greater importance might come up, but no, Ben & Jerry's.
We would have been ignored it for ice cream.
In other news, Papa John's is only serving 1-topping pizzas.
Right.
And McDonald's has discontinued the double quarter pounder until further notice. That's which Chick-fil-A is
You can only
actually
get chicken and beef.
and Chick-fil-A is renaming itself the Empowered Woman Filet. Yeah, there's so many changes coming. Thank goodness for Ben & Jerry for really stepping out and showing us how it works. This is ridiculous, isn't it? First of all, everybody mixes 2 flavors. Who orders 2 scoops of the same ice cream?
Oh, I do.
Oh, don't raise your hands. They can't see you. No, you don't. The whole point of ice cream is to get complementary flavors, to get one flavor that kind of works with another. No?
You're right. My 2
I know I'm
favorite
right.
scoops are butter pecan and rum raisin. Mm-hmm. Dog, that is so good.
Yeah, I can taste it right now. Let's go.
This is just the hypocrisy here is stunning, because what is it that got the cake bakers in trouble?
Oh, yeah.
When a customer walked in and asked for a particular thing, and the owners of the cake shop said, "No, we can't do that." And so if you walk in and ask for 2 scoops of rum raisin in Australia, now this is in Australia, and they say, what? No. We
Robert,
can't
you
do
have
that.
climbed so high in the tree of wisdom. I only hope that you do not fall now.
I
That is
probably will.
that is brilliant. That's absolutely
It
right.
is- they have completely double. That's why I made that double standard quote, because they are totally destroying their argument for shutting down Christian businesses that won't do stuff for the LGBTQY crowd. Take it, Doc.
I don't even know what to say. I know that.
Still trying to figure out the Q and the Y, but
In other news, Dairy Queen refuses to split banana in half on banana splits.
There you go.
I just don't know where
It's
to go.
okay to not give the customer what they want.
Mike-
really?
Michael
Is that
Brown-
really okay?
Michael Brown in this article says, let's say that chocolate represents men and vanilla represents women. You take 1 scoop of chocolate and 1 scoop of vanilla, and what do you get? Something new, something distinct, a unique blend of 2 flavors. 2 entities that are different and yet similar now become one. That's the picture of marriage. What's a unique blend of male and female, the unique union of 2 different and yet similar entities. Borrowing imagery from John Gray, marriage is a union of Mars plus Venus. I think he's got, I just think he's brilliant to even think of this analogy here.
Well, that reminds me of another one of my favorite ice creams, which is chocolate fudge swirl.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do like that, too.
Well, I've got a wedding next month, and if you think I'm doing the wedding without bringing this analogy into the sermon, you're crazy. This
Look.
is brilliant. No more of this one flesh stuff. I'm just going to bring out some ice cream, mush them together, and say, there you go. Here's
Look,
something new.
Absolutely. The last wedding I did, we did the fisherman knot tying.
Right.
Always nice.
Always a nice one.
Have you
right?
let them go yet?
No, I don't tie slip knots. So, but on now we have a new one. It's the ice cream buffet. And we can have all, and the participants can get involved. The party can do it. You know, the girls and the guys standing on the side, whatever they're called, groomsmen and
The only
bridesmaids.
difficulty Ben and Jerry's is going to have is if you say, okay, I won't take 2 chocolate, I'll take 1 vanilla and 1 chocolate, and then the vanilla self-identifies as chocolate,
Chocolate.
thereby avoiding the whole issue.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, can ice cream do that?
Self-identify?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that you just made it now LGBTQ Y, V, and C.
VC, vanilla, that's right.
That's right. All right, let's get all the letters.
Yeah.
Well, no, but this is, I think, obviously he's making a serious point.
He is.
that we need to recognize that marriage does come because men and women are different, and that's what makes marriage, wonderful and purposeful, and in God's eyes a complex and delicious concoction there. So
I just can't get over that they have basically gutted their whole argument about business in in sexual terms, identity terms. It is just amazing to me that they stepped all over that principle. But, that's what liberals do. They're not consistent in their thinking. They just don't think out the consequences of their actions.
I thought the part about Michael Brown's writing that I liked the best was the idea. I think you said it in a way, Ben, but the idea that 2 disparate flavors combine to create something new is also a sign and a symbol of the reproductive nature that marriage was designed to bring about something new in the image of the Creator, something that previously did not exist. In the case of most of us, that would be our children. My children are chocolate mint.
Chocolate mint.
Chocolate mint. It's a combination. My wife is very mint. I'm very chocolate.
mine are chunky monkey, but I'm
Chunky monkey.
Chunky monkey.
I'm gonna have to work on that.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't even know where to go with that one.
But,
Well, it is fascinating how this stuff, I just can't get over Ben and Jerry's. They didn't try this in the States. I guess they're doing a little test marketing in Australia before they bring it statesides. I don't know, to see what happens over there. But
well,
I can't imagine an Australian walking in to get some ice cream, and he wants 2 scoops of chocolate ice cream, and the person behind the counter says, "No, you can't have that." Mm-hmm. What's an Australian going to do? They're independent, sort of strong-minded folk.
right, right.
It's going to be a scene.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see if it means that the Dunkin' Donuts and the what do they combine with ice cream? Baskin Robbins will just have to take on a whole new role there. But you bring up Robert, actually this idea of the corporate social justice. We were talking about social justice earlier,
Right.
and the idea of corporate social justice, which we applaud. But it has to be in some sense, some sensical way. I mean, this kind of stunt, really, basically, is all it is. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
And doesn't really further anybody's cause.
Furthers their cause. Look who we're talking about today.
Yeah,
We're not
exactly.
talking about Chick-fil-A, and we're not talking about Dairy Queen. We're talking about Ben and Jerry's.
No, you have.
Well, I try to bring up our sponsors as often as I can. But I mean, the reality is this is a great publicity stunt.
Maybe we'll
What's
get
to
Ben and
lose?
Jerry's as an advertiser on this spot here. That would be interesting, because we have committed a fair amount of time to it.
Or at least a free ice cream
I
afterwards.
mean, would we accept them as an advertiser of Faith Matters? I don't know.
Well,
See,
that
social justice, the backlash.
Yeah, be careful now. You're going to get me in trouble. But the idea that we want like Chick-fil-A is just a wonderful community supporter.
Right.
They do so much around the community and to promote good community sense. They do not, even if their owners have particular beliefs, they don't push those.
No,
They're not pushing that agenda.
no.
They're supporting good community spirit, and so it's a very different kind of entity.
Well, everybody leave, go to Ben and Jerry's, and ask for 2 scoops of the same ice cream and see what happens.
Except for Doc, he just
Yeah.
can't.
May
bring
I have the
himself to
last
do
word,
that.
Ben?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Faith Matters. Email your comments, questions, and suggestions to faithmatters@thetalkstation.com.
Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Give me faith.
Faith Matters is a production of The Talk Station.